Hi, and welcome once again to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Wesley.
Today, our title is The Uniqueness of African Hair.
好，我们的中文标题是强大基因非洲民族的自然卷啊，这个卷就是他们头发的自然卷。
This is a really interesting topic. Now, there are two reasons. One is I have a friend who wrote a children's book many years ago that explained why hair has different textures, why some hair is straight, why some is curly, etc. And we're going to talk about that in today's article. So this friend of mine made it into a very interesting, informative, and cute children's book.
所以这个 Karen 老师看到这题目觉得特别有亲切感，因为他以前有一个朋友呢，他就写了一本这个书给小孩看的书，解释一下为什么有的人头发是直的，有的人头发是卷的还有各种头发不同的质地。
Yeah, it's a Taiwanese friend. The other thing is you have to be aware that the most sensitive issue in American culture is race. Always keep that in mind. Anytime you read something about race, there's a lot of stuff going on. And one thing I've learned in reading 春秋跟左传, some things are not mentioned in the 春秋 for a reason. It's because the writer of 春秋 didn't approve of something. 他认为这个事情做得不道德，他就故意没有提。So when you're reading 春秋, you have to read what's not there. And you don't find out what's not there because you don't know that stuff until you read the 左传. They say, 他没有提这件事情是因为他这样做是没有接受谁的那个授权去做这件事情，所以没有提。How are you supposed to know that? You know, you're new to these very old books. But the fact that it wasn't mentioned is making a comment. It's telling you, I don't approve of this. You have to get from another source what's going on. Now, the reason I mention this is because I'm reading this lately, but it also relates to what we're saying. There's a lot of things that you see not mentioned. It's because we're avoiding mention of them because it's not politically correct.
好，所以 Karen 老师他先举了一个例子他说这个你读春秋的时候，其实有很多事情春秋不写他不写的原因就是他觉得这个事情他觉得不赞成，或者是他觉得这是不对的事情他就不写了然后看到左传你才知道说原来之前春秋有讲到这些他没有谈到的事情。所以呢很多时候我不写不提本身就是一种这个姿态就是一个叙述，就是个 statement， 就告诉你我不赞成或者是这东西我们还是不要碰好了所以感觉是这样。那种族问题也是一样，在美国现在种族问题是非常其实可以说是很严重的问题
Probably the top most sensitive problem.
Yeah, 可能是在美国可能是最敏感的问题其实我有几个同学他们在美国住了一辈子，他们现在都想回台湾来了当然没有讲原因但是侧面了解好像跟舒适度有关系他们可能在美国住了那么久，越住越觉得说他们的家还是在台湾我觉得是这种感觉
Well, on the one hand, you have to say that any foreigner will have this experience in any country. It's not particular to America. It may be worse in America than some places.
Yeah.
But in every single country, if you are a foreigner, you are always reminded that you are a foreigner. For us here, I mean, it's not negative because people are nice to us because of white privilege, I guess.
Yeah.
They're nicer to you. They want to learn English or whatever reason. But they treat you differently. And when you're treated differently, you keep getting reminded you're an outsider.
Yeah.
So it's true of every country. And I'm following a group now about France because I'm working on my French. And then Americans are saying the same thing. When you're in France, no matter how good your French is, you're always reminded you're an American, you're an outsider. This happens in every country.
Yeah.
It's just that in America, this whole thing is especially sensitive.
对，我想 Karen 老师讲这个很正确就是你只要你是一个外国人，在一个外国的国家，你永远会让他觉得说你就是外来的不管你的语言讲得多棒但也不一定说表示大家对你不好，就算大家都对你很好，你还是会知道说我跟你们是不一样的，也可能就是因为你们对我特别好，我才觉得说我永远是个外来的人所以在每个国家，你到每个国家到每个外国国家去住都会这样，但在美国可能这个问题会越来就是相当的严重，所以各位就一定要记得一点，跟种族有关的事情在美国是非常敏感的。
That's right. And just like I said with 春秋, there are things that we purposely don't say because if we say them, we're afraid that we will get a bad response. People will criticize us or attack us. So we just try to avoid mentioning it at all.
Yeah, 所以这个美国人很少去提这个种族的问题，就是因为这个问题这个每个人有个人的看法，而且这个问题太敏感了，所以就不提了。所以不提或者少看到这样的讨论， 这个本身的就告诉你这个事情是很敏感的。
So we're trying to lower our chance of getting attacked. Nobody likes being attacked. All right, so this time we are talking about African hair, which I also find very interesting because the texture, the color, a lot of things about African hair is very special compared to white people's hair and compared to Chinese hair. It's different from both. And I find it really interesting because of the many things you can do with African-type hair that don't really work with other kinds of hair. I had a friend who lived for quite a while in Africa. He was trying to find himself or something like that. When he came by, his hair was in dreadlocks. He's white. And his hair was in dreadlocks. I said, I didn't recognize you. Your hair has changed.
所以这个很有趣啊，这个非洲人因为他们发质跟人家不一样，所以他们的头发他们可以做很多很多的事情，
很特别的花样，
很特别的花样。那这个Karen 老师有一个朋友呢，在非洲住，
白人男人，
男人哈，然后呢，这个在非洲住很久，那现在回来，他头发上有那小辫子，是不是
？Yeah, that's right, dreadlocks.
Yeah. 好 ，How do you spell the word?
D-R-E-A-D. Dread is to have a fear of something, and locks are 就是一束头发 is a lock of hair. So they're called dreadlocks because sometimes I guess they scare people. If someone has very long dreadlocks, especially a tall, large African-American male, people will sometimes be a little afraid.
对，这尤其是如果这个一个很魁梧的一个黑人，满头的那个小辫子，那个你有时候
他其实是粗的又长的，
粗的，对，粗粗长长的那样，那你就看起来有时候会蛮可怕的。Yeah.
That's right. And so this is all really sensitive. So when I saw this article, I thought, you were treating a somewhat sensitive subject, but at the same time, it is really interesting because their hair is so special. It's good to learn about what makes it special.
好，所以我们可以今天这篇文章了解一下这个非洲民族他们的头发有什么特别的地方。
Okay, here's our article. The uniqueness of African hair. Human hair comes in various sizes, lengths, colors, and textures. Some people grow long, straight hair, while others have hair that is curly and short. However, there is one group of people known for having hair that shares particular characteristics. A defining trait of people with African ancestry is having a head of thick hair that grows in tight coils. While features such as curls or thickness are found in people all around the world, it is the combination of these two traits that makes Africans relatively unique. However, thick and curly hair is actually quite fragile. The scalp produces natural oil called sebum, which keeps our hair healthy. The tight curls on African people's hair make it hard for the oil to spread evenly. Thus, hair strands become dry and more brittle. You might be wondering why people of African descent have such unique hair. The answer to this is all related to the hair follicle. A hair follicle is a tube-like structure, pore, in the top 2 layers of skin that hair grows out of. The size, shape, and texture of a person's hair are wholly determined by their hair follicles. For example, the larger the hair follicles, the thicker a person's hair. Hair follicles with perfectly round openings produce straight hair. The more oblong the openings of the hair follicles are, the curlier the hair will be. Thus, African people tend to have large hair follicles with very flat, elliptical openings. Regardless of whether a person has hair that's short, long, curly, or straight, we can all admire the beauty in the diversity of hair around the world. Wonderful conclusion because it's very easy for us to mistrust somebody who is different from us. But if we can appreciate difference, we will look at things in a new light. We'll think, oh, that's so interesting.
所以跟我们不一样的人或者是一些事物，我们常常会觉得对他不太信任或者不喜欢。但如果你能够学着用开放的心胸去看待这些人或事的话，你可能会觉得其实他蛮有趣的。
We approach from an attitude of curiosity.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's new. That's different. That's so interesting.
Yeah, 所以我们可以其实保持好奇心，这个也是蛮重要的。所以你看到不同的事情，你要怀着好奇心去了解它，去理解它，那你可能就会发现，又有一个新的不同的东西是你喜欢的。
Right. Back to our title, The Uniqueness of African Hair. Uniqueness is the noun for unique. And unique is an adjective, and watch out for the pronunciation. It comes from French. When you see I-Q-U-E at the end of a word, it's probably from French, and it's stressed on the second syllable in American English.
好，所以其实你看到有一个字，如果它 有 IQUE 好，那通常就是法文来的字，那重音通常就在第二个这个重音节上面。
In American English, not in British.
在美式英文里面通常重音在第二个音节。
That's right. Okay, so the uniqueness means that in Chinese it's 独一无二. It's very, very special. It's different from most other kinds of hair. All right, human hair comes in various sizes, lengths, colors, and textures. This is kind of paving the way. It's giving us background for what's coming up soon. It's getting us ready to hear about different kinds of hair.
好，所以呢，这个事实上这句话就等于是给你一个 background， 好，就帮你铺路，看知道接下来要讲什么。那这里注意这个结构哈 ，something comes in 什么样的 size， 就是这个东西它有什么样的尺寸的意思。那在这里呢，这个 something 就是 human hair， 就是人的头发呢有怎么样，有什么样的尺寸呢？有 various， 有不同的尺寸，那也有不同的长度 lengths 啊，然后呢有不同的颜色啊，还有呢不同的 textures， 就是质地。
Yeah, texture is a good word to learn. I think a lot of people probably don't know that word. 某一个东西的质地或质感 is the texture of something. And to come in, that means 有各式各样的东西的种类. And lengths, I hope you noticed how Wesley said it. Put a K in there. 那这个字当中你加个 K, 你的发音就会对. It's not lengths. Some people actually do say it that way, but I think it's more standard to say lengths. If you listen to the way Wesley said it, you heard a K in there, and that's the way to say it right, lengths. The next sentence, some people grow long, straight hair, while others have hair that is curly and short. Now, some people do have long, straight hair, and that's because their hair grows out straight, and it's easy for it to grow long. It's easy to take care of. It will behave. On the other hand, I asked my hairdresser once about how many Chinese people, 就是汉族, have really straight hair, or how many if they have curls. She says actually, and she has experience because she's a hairdresser. She says actually, almost everybody, even 汉族, they have a little curl in their hair.
所以其实即使是汉人他这个头发也会有一点点卷可能在程度不同了。
是波浪形的这样子。
波浪形
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 所以这个句子他说 Some people grow 你说 grow hair 就是留什么样的头发或者长着什么样的头发，所以有些人呢他们长着或者他们留的是长长的，然后 straight 是直直的头发那 others 其他的人呢他们的头发是怎么样 hair that is curly 就是卷的 and short 短的。
The reason that curly and short go together is because it's very hard to manage curly hair. We can't let it grow long. I grew it long before I put it in braids. 我要扎辫子. Otherwise, it is just too hard to manage. 你要每天把它吹直，是很花时间，而且要有技巧。So if you have curly hair, there's a good chance you're going to keep it short just because it's too hard to take care of. So like sometimes when I'm out shopping, like the woman in front of me, her hair is very, very long down to her butt, and it's very straight. I just feel like going up to her saying, you have such beautiful hair.
所以这Karen 老师他说这个头发如果卷的话呢，通常就不会留太长，因为很难照顾你要把它梳直，或者是你如果不照顾的话，它可能就卷在一起怎么等等的所以卷发的人常常他们通常头发就是短短的那如果我们看到一个人头发可以留到这个腰部那长长的长发那就是很直很长的头发，很漂亮。
Do you really notice that too as a guy?
Not really.
No? Because when I see women like that, I'm like, gosh, your hair is so beautiful. However, there is one group of people known for having hair that shares particular characteristics.
但是呢有一群人 known for 就是以什么而闻名他们以什么闻名呢？以拥有一种头发，这种头发怎么样 that shares particular characteristics. Shares 就是共同拥有 particular 一些特定的 characteristics 这个特征。
I want to say two things. One is sometimes when you see that beautiful long straight hair and you go up to the front and you realize it's a guy. It's a shock.
It happens.
That happens sometimes. The other thing is that at least as someone who grew up in America, by this point, we know what's coming even without looking at the title. When you're saying that there's one group of people with very particular hair, we are already guessing they're probably talking about people with African ancestry.
所以如果是美国人的话，看到这一句话说有一群人他们有特别特定的头发，有特定的一些特征，很多美国人大概这里就会猜接下来大概就要讲黑人了。
Yeah, 有非裔的人。
非裔的人 yeah.
A defining trait of people with African ancestry is having a head of thick hair that grows in tight coils. And that's a good way to describe it. They're very, very small, they're very curly, and they're very tight coils. The way they themselves describe it, if their hair is just in really small, tight coils, and it all kind of sticks together in clumps, we call that nappy hair. And nappy is a little bit of a negative term, so African Americans will use that to describe their hair when it's not managed extremely well. I have really nappy hair. It's hard to take care of. N-A-P-P-Y.
好，所以如果说这个头发很卷啊，然后卷到那种不好整理的程度的话，
有点一坨一坨的都卷在一起，
一坨都卷在一起，这个时候你可以说它是 nappy hair 哈 N-A-P-P-Y.
But be careful with this word because it's used mostly by African Americans and it's a bit negative.
好，但这个字呢有一点点负面啊，而且这个大概是黑人才会用哈，所以各位用这个字呢，你听懂就好了，我建议哈，那你不要乱用哈。那接下来我们看到这个句子呢，他说这个 a defining trait 就是这个决定性的特征啊 of people 啊，这些人是什么样的人呢 with African ancestry 就是祖先，所以当你说 people with African ancestry 就可以说中文可以说有非裔的血统的人。
Right, and I want to throw in here that you cannot always tell just by looking at someone if they have African ancestry. Mm-hmm. I have a teacher I admire very much, and I was talking with him for a long time till he mentioned that his father was from Bermuda. And I said, well, most people from Bermuda are black. He says, yeah, my father's black. I go, huh? Wow. I had no idea.
Yeah, 所以其實有時候你外表看不出來哈，有的他有黑人的血統，可是他可能就是皮膚也是白白的哈，也不是黑的。
And he said in his family, everybody's a different color.
那像剛剛 Karen 老師講他的那個老師的家裡面，每一個人啊都是不同的那個膚色都不同啊。所以呢，這種有非裔血統的人啊，他們有一個 defining 就是決定性的一個特徵是什麼呢？就是 having a head of 就有一頭 thick hair 濃密的頭髮。那這個頭髮怎麼樣 ？That grows in tight coils。這個頭髮呢是這個很緊密的一卷一卷的啊，這樣子長的是這個樣子。
While features such as curls or thickness are found in people all around the world, it is the combination of these two traits that makes Africans relatively unique.
好 ，while 是虽然啊 ，feature 就是特色啊，例如怎麼樣捲髮，或者是這個頭髮很濃密。這樣的特色呢 are found in people all around the world， 全世界的人都會有這樣的特色，但是呢主要是這個強調句型是 the combination of these two traits， 是這兩個特色的組合在一起 that makes Africans relatively unique。 好 make someone unique 就是讓他們變得很獨特，那 relatively 是相對而言的獨特，所以使得非裔的人士他們相對而言很獨特的是什麼呢？是把這兩個特色就是捲髮跟濃密的頭髮把它結合在一起，那這樣的特色使得非裔人士特別的獨特。
I'll mention in passing that many Jewish people, certainly not all, tend to have dark hair that is quite curly, but not in the same way as African hair. However, thick and curly hair is actually quite fragile. That's something I also learned very early on. The church that I went to was in a black neighborhood. We had lots of black people. When I heard them talking about their hair, I learned a lot of things about black hair that are different from most white people's hair.
所以他说但是呢这个很浓密或者比較粗的還有這個 curly 會捲的這種頭髮呢 is actually 事實上它是 quite 相當的 fragile 就是脆弱的。
That's right. That means if it gets too dry, it just breaks off.
如果太乾就會斷裂。
The scalp produces natural oil called sebum, which keeps our hair healthy.
好 scalp 就是頭皮 produces 會生產會分泌很自然的油脂 natural oil called 稱之為皮脂就是這個 sebum 我們中文翻成皮脂。那這個東西皮脂呢會 keeps our hair 保持我們的頭髮怎麼樣 healthy 在健康的狀況之下。
The tight curls on African people's hair makes it hard for the oil to spread evenly.
好，那這個 tight curls 就很濃密的捲髮在這個非裔人士的這個頭髮上面這種濃密的捲髮呢 make it hard for the oil to spread evenly to make it hard for 某人或某事 to 做某件事情，就讓某人某事要做這個事情變得特別的困難，所以在這裡就是要讓這個油能夠 spread evenly 平均的散開來，讓這件事情變得很難。
Thus, hair strands become dry and more brittle.
因此呢，這 hair strands 就是这个一缕一缕的头发，一股一股的头发，
一根一根
的头发那就会变得怎么样 dry 变得干，而且呢更加的 brittle 就是脆脆的容易碎掉。
That's why people with African hair have to use special products to moisturize their hair.
所以这个非裔人士他们常常要用特别的产品来让他们的保湿，让头发保持他们的湿润。
You might be wondering why people of African descent have such unique hair.
你可能会觉得奇怪，为什么有非裔血统的人有这么独特的头发？这个 descent 也是血统的意思，或者是你说他是非洲人的后裔，叫做 African descent， 也就是有非裔血统。
The answer to this is all related to the hair follicle.
那 the answer to this 就这个东西的答案 is all related to 就完全都跟什么有关呢？跟 the hair follicle 就是毛囊，头发的毛囊跟这个有关。
A hair follicle is a tube-like structure, pore, in the top 2 layers of skin that hair grows out of.
好，那所谓的头发的毛囊呢，是一种 tube-like 就是管状的 structure 结构，括号它就是所谓的毛孔，那是在怎么样？在头最上面的2层皮肤。那从这个最上这2层皮肤里面呢，其实就是头发怎么样 grows out of， 头发就是从这里长出来的。
The size, shape, and texture of a person's hair are wholly determined by their hair follicles.
好，那尺寸 shape 形状还有 texture， 一个人他头发的大小粗短等等的这个还有形状还有质地呢，完全是 are determined by 由什么决定呢？由他们的这个头皮上的毛囊来决定的。
For example, the larger the hair follicles, the thicker a person's hair.
所以呢，这头皮上的毛囊越大，那这个他的头发就会越粗。
Hair follicles with perfectly round openings produce straight hair.
那如果说你的这个头发的毛囊呢，它有完美的圆圆的开口，也就是它开口如果很圆的话，它就会产生很直的头发。
Okay, or 完全的圆。
完全的圆 yeah.
The more oblong the openings of the hair follicles are, the curlier the hair will be.
Oblong 就是椭圆形，所以它越是椭圆的话呢，这 the openings 就是它的开口，这些毛囊开口越是椭圆形的话呢，那这个头发就会越卷。
Thus, African people tend to have large hair follicles with very flat, elliptical openings, so the hair is quite thick, but it's very curly.
所以呢，非洲人 tend to 往往就会有很大的头发的毛囊，然后呢，这个毛囊是 with very 它的这个毛囊有很怎么样 flat 就扁平的，然后 elliptical 也是椭圆的意思，它有很扁平很椭圆的开口。那这个 oblong 其实就是长方形或者椭圆形，它只要它有2边比较长那就感觉起来就会变成一个椭圆形或长方形。那这个 elliptical 它特别就是指椭圆形，
都很扁，
也很扁。
Regardless of whether a person has hair that's short, long, curly, or straight, we can all admire the beauty in the diversity of hair around the world.
所以 regardless of whether 就是一个人不管他的头发是长是短是卷是直，我们都可以 admire 欣赏 the beauty 这个美。什么美呢？ diversity 就是各式各样。好，所以在全世界各式各样的头发我们都可以欣赏它的美，不管它是这个长的短的直的或者是这个卷的都可以去欣赏。
Right, and diversity is what makes this world interesting. Here are our questions. Number 1, which are the hair characteristics associated with people of African descent?
好，哪一种头发的特色与非洲民族是有关的？
The answer is B, thick and curly hair.
好，答案是 B, 后卷发。
Number 2, according to the passage, what are hair follicles?
根据本文，毛囊是什么？
The answer is C, they are the organs that hair grows out of on the skin.
答案是 C, 皮肤上头发从中长出的器官。
Number 3, what type of hair would a person with small oval-shaped hair follicles have?
有着小而且椭圆状毛囊的人会长出什么样的头发呢？
The answer is A, fine and curly hair.
答案是 A, 细卷发。
And number 4, what can we infer about hair characteristics from the passage?
我们可以从本文推论出什么样关于头发特色的事情呢？
The answer is C, straight hair allows sebum to spread more evenly.
答案是 C, 直发让皮脂更平均地分布。
And that's it for today. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.